Conversations with a Coach by Center for Peace. This is the podcast where we have candid conversations about addressing and correcting the abuse of women by men. I'm your host, Coach Joy, and each week we're going to dive deep into stories and strategies and solutions that help restore the dignity of the lives of those affected by abuse. At Center for Peace, we believe in the power of education, understanding, and actionable change. We'll be talking with survivors, with experts, with advocates, and those who have committed to making amends, providing a platform for voices that need to be heard and stories that need to be shared. Together, our aim is to foster a supportive community where we not only discuss the impacts of abuse, but also focus on the steps that are necessary to heal, empower, and restore dignity. As we explore these complexities, we hope you'll join us. We want to challenge the societal norms that perpetuate it and highlight the incredible resilience and strength of survivors. This is about more than just a conversation. It is about inspiring change and creating a safer and more respectful world for everyone. So thank you for tuning in. Let's get started on today's topic. Today, I want to talk about this idea that when we're engaged in a conversation with an abusive man, or you can call him a narcissist, or it's a toxic relationship, really, I'm not going to get caught up on those terms. I have a platform for a lot of thoughts and ideas at Center for Peace that are a lot different than what might be taught in regular psychology, because I've done my due diligence to dig into the neurobiology, to understand human behavior. And so the conversations that I have are not necessarily, geared on what should we call them, but more about what are they doing? Why do some of these things impact us the way that they do? How do we understand that impact? And then what can we do about it for our own health and well-being? And what's the best pro-social way to really engage in a conversation about abuse in a world that seems to promote it and blame the innocent victims for it? So you're involved in a relationship with somebody. And I say that really carefully because even the way that we use words is so critical. You know, when we say domestic violence, it alludes to the fact that there's two people, or it wouldn't be domestic, right? And so even that is really not healthy language. I'm in an abusive relationship also is a mutualizing term that says, there must be some shared culpability. So I try to be really, really careful with the language that I say and the way that I articulate what we are experiencing as women who experience targeted partner abuse. Because the words that we say have an impact either on validating the experience or validating the behavior of the abuser or the perpetrator. And that is absolutely the thing that we're not wanting to do. We do not want to, in any way, shape, or form, normalize, accept, or be in any way tolerant of something that is just hugely egregious in our society. So I started to talk a little bit about, you're involved in a dialogue. You probably have had these before, maybe sometimes being accused of these things going on and on and on, and they never end. And there's periods of time where you feel like he might be drawing closer and then he backs away. It's kind of like this accordion dance where we go back, we come in and out, and we kind of swap places. We take turns with each other. Sometimes you're ready to bolt and you just can't stand it anymore, and he'll come in and rescue. And then you'll try to get to a close place, and there's almost like a little bit of something that feels like, oh, we're making progress, and then boom, he'll back up again, and we can have these kinds of dialogue dances for hours. I call these marathon dialogues, and they can be very, very unhealthy. One of the things that I teach the men at Center for Peace is to try to always engage in the conversation when it's requested. When we put a bid out for conversation, we should never stonewall or give somebody the silent treatment. But we do need to be mindful that we are living a life, right? And so we don't want to be abusive. We want to be truthful and transparent and honest. Hey, I'd love to talk to you, but I've only got about 20 minutes, and then I need to go take care of this task that we're working on together today. Unless you're okay with me postponing it, it just takes a conversation with each other and just respect. But when you get involved in those other types of conversations where you know you are being provoked, and there's no other way for this to be looked at but a provoked conversation, because he's not interested in anything you have to say. He's not interested in hearing how you feel. This isn't an opportunity for you to dialogue back and forth. This is an opportunity for him to beat you up, berate, verbally accost you. And this is a very, very unhealthy dynamic. And it's one where I like to teach the women to learn how to recognize these really, really carefully. Sometimes we think too wrongly, we think, oh, if I could just get him to understand this, then he'd know why this is hurting me. He already understands. Otherwise, he wouldn't be doing the things that he was doing, because he knows how bad this kind of behavior is hurting you. So we need to be careful with some of the assumptions we make about what these men in this population know or don't know, what they understand or what they don't understand. They might not be able to articulate the calculatedness of it. But when you sit down with them and when you really unpack it and you say, you know what, when you're willing to sit with a woman, your wife, the person that you say you love with, and just deliberately talk to her that way in an aggressive, in a contemptuous way, and then you try to tell her that you love her, you're not fooling anybody in those kinds of situations. And what that really says is you don't care that you hurt her. And when they really sit in it and start to accept it, they have to see the truth of that. And some men will work on it and others will not. Others will drill down tighter and ramp up the abuse even more. And that's just evidence of the kind of abuser that you're working with. The ones who are interested in change will, over time, learn to correct. The ones who are not interested in change. So it's not about ability, it's about willingness. Are they willing to take responsibility for who they are, what they've been doing, and how they've been living their life, and the impact of their life on other people? We do not live in a vacuum. We do not live in isolation. The things that we do and say with and to each other and around each other have impact. Words have impact. Our energy around each other has an impact. I talk about this all the time because it is so critical for us to really get our minds around and absorb. So many times I hear people say things like, I don't need him, or I don't need her, or I don't need them. And while maybe that is true to the point of I don't desire them or choose to have them in my life, that is perfectly understandable. But the reality is we are a species of people hardwired for connection. We're social beings, and we need one another to regulate our central nervous systems. That's just science. And when our central nervous systems are being impacted in abusive ways, that's just very, very detrimental to our physical well-being and our emotional well-being, our psychological well-being. It's just really hard to navigate life when those kinds of things are happening, which is why having that little piece of information and realizing that when we find ourselves caught in that verbal spin cycle with an abuser who has no agenda but just to be contentious and stir up verbal warfare, it's time to exit. That is not a safe space for your central nervous system, for your well-being, for your body and your mind. It is not a safe place for you. It will be metabolically uh, ineffective and challenging, and will be costly in other ways. It'll rob you of sleep that night if that happens early in the day. It impacts your immune system. It can cause headaches. I mean, this kind of abuse has such a physical impact on us that there is so much good science out there for us to know and understand that sometimes as wives of men who target us, we need to learn to apply some tools, to get us out of that situation when we can. It isn't always safe. I understand. Not every situation is something you can just get up off the couch and walk away from. Not every situation is that clean cut. And I get that and understand that. That's why we have coaches at Center for Peace that can help you walk out your own individual situations and learn when and how you can navigate the various dynamics that you have. It's not cut and dry. there isn't a one case that fits every single situation. We're all unique individual beings with unique individual relationships. There's some commonalities. Yes, absolutely. 100%. There are some definite commonalities. And actually, there's been so many times when I've said, these guys actually have a playbook, and it's like every one of them do the same thing. And that is true to a point, but then the way that they dispel it or disperse it, that can differ relationship to relationship, and the impact can differ relationship to relationship because we're different human beings. So if you find yourself caught up in one of those verbal spin cycles, one of the most important things to do until you can separate yourself physically, because getting physically distant and stopping that onslaught is the number one objective, is to get it to just stop. But when you can't, breathing deeply is one of the most healing things for our metabolic balance. So the most important job that our brain does is keeping the rest of our body in balance. And there's a conversation happening between our body and our brain constantly, all of the time. And the brain is predicting these events. It's getting ready to send an action call, give the body a job assignment. And so the brain and the body are working very closely together. But we have a lot of control and power over that, more than we think we do. And so when we find ourselves in those really tense situations, there's some things that are really good for us to do. And breathing is one of them. Going to get a big drink of water is also one of them. So if you're in a place where you can get, so you're in the family room talking or in the bedroom talking, which I don't ever, I always say, please don't ever fight in your bedrooms, right? Go somewhere where, go somewhere else if you're going to have conversations. Or if he's going to fight with you, it's not like we're fighting with them. They're the ones that are at war with us. Move into the kitchen where you can get yourself a big drink of water and hydrate yourself, because it's pulling from all this this conversation is draining oxygen, it's draining water, it's draining fluids from your body. It's pulling a drain on your body, because your brain is trying to keep your body in balance and stable. So that's one of the most important things that you can do, is just try to practice that mindfulness breathing, where you breathe really deep and you just hold it and let it out, because usually he's on a rant. And so you got plenty of time to breathe before he's even going to give you an opportunity to put a word in edgewise, right? So just tell yourself, just talk yourself through it. And that is actually one of the best things that you can do for yourself in those kinds of toxic conversations that you have with an abusive spouse, partner. I know that it's very, very difficult. It's not always easy to navigate these conversations. I know a lot of times we are just so hopeful that that we can just be seen and heard, and that they will just stop what they're doing. But if you've been dealing with this for a long, long time, the stopping is not anything you can affect. It really does need to be his work. He needs to find somebody who he will work with, who will call him out, who will hold him to account, who will give him the language that he can hold on to. And yes, there's always resistance in the beginning. Every time I start a men's group, the very first thing that we have to address is what you're doing abusive, because they need to be able to get their mind wrapped around all the different ways that they abuse their partner, and be able to call it that, because that's the language she's going to use. And so unless we're going to sit there and fight about words, what this word means and what that word means, and this behavior is abuse, but that behavior isn't abuse. Oh, but when you do it, it's also abuse. That's a big waste of energy. So they do need to admit it, and it is their change work to do. This isn't a relationship problem. This isn't a marriage problem. This isn't a domestic problem. It is a him problem. It is his work to do. But there's a lot of things that, while you're trying to navigate what you're going to do with your life and the choices that you're going to make, because I know not everyone leaves, not everyone can get to safety in the way of a divorce or a separation. Sometimes it's just not feasible and it's not doable. And sometimes it's just not your choice to do that. And we honor that decision in every single individual's life. But there are definitely some things that you can do to help your mind and your body work together for your good. So if you want those tools and you want that help, come see us at Center for Peace. We're starting a new group next week. on Wednesday morning at 10 a.m. Central, 11 a.m. Eastern. Come join us for a group. Come talk to us and come learn some of the things that we teach at Center for Peace that can help you have a peaceful life as you learn to navigate your own decisions and your journey and help you restore dignity to yourself and reclaim your agentic authority. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. We'll see you all again next week.